Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but here it goes. Right now, in the state of Florida, as of today, more people are dying per day than at any other point in the COVID pandemic. I mean, just think about that for a minute as you look at this chart. Look at this chart. It's August of 2021, right? We've been battling this implacable viral foe for nearly 18 months. Through incredible human ingenuity, diligent work by scientists and public health workers, we have a variety of safe and effective vaccines, one of which received full approval from the Food and Drug Administration today. We are also the richest country in the world. We are sitting on the world's biggest stockpile of vaccine doses. People around the world are desperate for the vaccines that we have. Those vaccines are the best tool for fighting this thing that has been ravaging our fellow Americans, our fellow humans across the world. And yet that spike, this is what's happening in Florida. The 7-day rolling average of fatalities, of deaths, exceeds every other previous wave since the start of the pandemic. How? How is this possible? The answer to that question is complicated, of course. The Delta variant really is more transmissible. There are a lot of factors. Some of it is probably random, honestly. We've seen this a lot. But the key revelatory moment that tells a lot of the story about what's happening in Florida didn't happen in Florida. It happened in Alabama. It happened this weekend. Let me set the scene for you. The disgraced, twice impeached ex-president, who is nothing if not a junkie for the adoration of fawning crowds, is holding a big rally on the farm north of Birmingham. He's in the heart of Trump country, right? Friendly group coming out to see Donald Trump in front of a big Alabama crowd. And before them, up on stage, he does something, I have to say, somewhat unexpected. He endorses the vaccines. But the way that he does it and what happens after is the real story. We're going to play it for you now and just try to take it all in.
You know what? I believe totally in your freedoms. I do. Bree, you got to do what you have to do. But I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the vaccines. But you got, no, that's okay. That's all right. You got your freedoms. But I happen to take the vaccine. If it doesn't work, you'll be the first to know, okay?
Okay, so what just happened there? He said essentially, I got the vaccine, you should too. Take the vaccines. And someone, maybe a few people, maybe a few dozen people in the crowd, booed him. They booed Donald Trump for recommending the vaccine. And you can see the panic in his eyes as he makes a hasty retreat. You've got your freedoms. And you can hear him screwing up what tiny bit of courage he has before he enters the rift, knowing this is probably going to happen, looking as terrified as a 9-year-old on a high diving board trying to get himself to jump. This, Mr. Braggadocious, Mr. Donald Trump, everything is great and bold and beautiful, and I'm the best. And he's terrified of what he's going to say because Donald Trump fears that crowd. He knows some of them hate vaccines, and he fears they will reject even him, their dear leader, if he says the simple, obvious truth, which is that they should get vaccinated. And then his worst fears are proven in that moment, and so he retreats like a coward.
You know what? I believe totally in your freedoms. I do. Bree, you got to do what you have to do. But I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the vaccines. But you got, no, that's okay. That's all right. You got your freedoms. But I happen to take the vaccine. If it doesn't work, you'll be the first to know, okay?
But don't beat up on me. I'm still your guy. You know, whatever. You got your freedoms. Maybe it won't work. I don't know. Think about this. There were thousands of people at that Alabama farm on Saturday night. Right now, 56% of the eligible population of Alabama has received at least one vaccine dose. That's not high enough, but that is a majority of the people who can get it. So I would bet a fair number of people at that rally were vaccinated. And again, you could see the crowd right behind him. It's not like tens of thousands of people booed in unison when he said, go get the vaccines. He got heckled a little bit. And those people, the kind of people who not only show up to a Donald Trump rally in Alabama in August outside, but boo Donald Trump when he says you should get the vaccine, they are statistically, I think, a tiny portion of the population of this country. They were a tiny portion of the crowd. And yet they have effectively seized veto power over American public health policy. That is the story when you look at this chart of COVID deaths in Florida, at least in part, those kinds of people, the ones who show up at, school board meetings and scream at public health officials and follow them into their car and say, everyone's going to know your name. They are not the majority of our fellow Americans of all political persuasions. They're not. These are the people driving public health policy in the Republican Party, one of only two viable political coalitions that govern this country. And that public health policy is getting people killed. In fact, no less a figure than radio host Alex Jones, who's the personification of destructive, fringe, conspiracy madness, guy who believes Sandy Hook and 9/11 were inside jobs. That guy tore into Donald Trump for having the temerity to recommend the vaccine.
Shame on you, Trump. Seriously. Hey, if you don't have the good sense to save yourself and your political career, that's okay. At least you're going to get some good Republicans elected. And, we like you. But my God, maybe you're not that bright. Maybe Trump's actually a dumbass.
Okay, that guy, a ridiculous, disgraced carnival barker. That guy, think about this. Donald Trump is scared of criticism from that guy, from Alex Jones. And so in his own way, Alex Jones has some veto power over public health policy in the Republican Party. Alex Jones and the fringe, far-right people who booed Trump at the Alabama rally this weekend. So that is how you get a situation like what is happening in Florida. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis wants the votes and support of those hecklers. And he has treated the pandemic largely like a liberal bogeyman. Last year, he lifted all COVID restrictions on businesses way back in September, well before the vaccines were available. Now, with the state's vaccine rate lagging behind other large states, about 59% of eligible population fully vaccinated, this disaster is raging. It's just objectively a terrible situation. Hundreds of Floridians dying. And Governor DeSantis is not taking care of the citizens he represents. Instead, he has been busying himself with nonsense like shadowboxing with Joe Biden over the border and assuring people that Florida's hospitals are, quote, open for business, which what the heck? Open for business? He has displayed not one iota of the kind of normal seriousness an elected official of either party should when presiding over a disaster, a tragedy, a mass death event. He has shown he is capable of it. This is not a dumb guy. Earlier this summer, when that condo tower collapsed near Miami Beach, you remember that? Governor DeSantis played the role of completely normal official overseeing a terrible tragedy. He mourned the dead, provided information, pledged to find out what happened, met with President Joe Biden. They had an event together that was completely amicable and serious. Ron DeSantis can do that. He's capable of it. He just will not do it with the pandemic. Because if he does, if he admits that this is a crisis for his state right now, more people dying than at any point, that his state needs to take some necessary steps to save its people, that they need to push vaccinations more strenuously, he will face the same backlash from the kinds of folks who heckled Donald Trump. And if he does that, he fears his political future in the Republican Party is over. So that's where we are. All the posturing, the ridiculous fights like about mask mandates in schools, which I think the evidence shows tangibly make Floridians and Florida students less safe. But also, those fights, they serve a vital function for Governor DeSantis. An expressive function. They are his wink and nod to the hecklers in the crowd, showing them that he is on their side. And you cannot defeat the virus if you cater to those hecklers. Again, we're not talking about a majority. Look at the numbers. This is new polling that we have from NBC. It shows that the populations, the sort of sub-demographics least enthusiastic about getting vaccinated are basically the ones you would expect, Trump supporters and people in rural areas. But even among those populations, which are the least supportive, still a 50-50 proposition. It's not like they overwhelmingly reject the vaccine. And even the hardest core Trump people, those who tell pollsters they are Republicans and sort of are Trump people first, as opposed to Republican Party members first, it's a smart division by the pollsters here, they're at 47% vaccinated or planning to get it as soon as they can. There are millions of people who are conservative, who like Donald Trump, who own MAGA gear, voted for Donald Trump, watch Fox News, and got vaccinated, who want to get vaccinated, who think other people should get vaccinated. I think there are a majority on the right. We're talking about a small fraction of Americans who are driving this. And honestly, they are a huge part of why we are where we are. They are a huge reason this chart looks the way it does, because ultimately, those yahoos who booed the former president when he meekly, almost apologetically said, hey, safe and effective vaccine could prevent you from dying from a horrible disease. I got it because, I don't want to die. They're the ones who have managed to seize a veto on COVID policy for a huge part of America.